Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Jago and Lightfoot story, The Similarity Engine by Andy Lane. This is the conclusion to Volume 1 of the Jago and Lightfoot series, which I have here. There you go. Just you can see it all there in the spines. It's really cool. And like I do with these official Big Finish covers, I also make my own DVD covers. And if you've been keeping up with the Jago and Lightfoot stories, I've been making my own covers. This one isn't really my best work. I like that I got it, like it looks like they're painted on to the wood. I'm trying to get it without the glare in there. That's the spine if anyone's interested. Cool. And that's the back. And the CDs are in there. And a bonus disc. So this story concludes season 1 of Jago and Lightfoot. And this season does what I think a lot of seasons or anything does, particularly on like American shows, in which you have a very light storyline going in the background, and then it all finales in the final story. It's important to note that this story also follows up on The Mahogany Murderers, a story in the Companion Chronicles that serves as a pilot for the Jago and Lightfoot series, which I thought was a bit strange that they wouldn't have added that into the box set. But I guess if you listen to that story and you wanted to pick up the series, then you would have had it twice. But as someone new, it is a bit strange listening to this. So if you are going to get this, please be aware that you might not understand everything that's going on. But is it any good? I mean, so far we've had one great story, one miss, and probably one of the best stories from any Doctor Who spin-off. And this story, I think it's good, but it's just okay. It's just okay, maybe. It starts off with Henry Gordon Jago getting ready for an interview, and we get some really fun moments in which he's practicing to himself. However, he sees some kids playing on some ice, which is very peculiar because it's in the summer. And whilst he's there, he accidentally trips on some ice and injures his back. And he gets taken to what he believes is the hospital at first. But something is not right. As we go back to Lightfoot, he's been investigating some going-ons as there seems to be people taking black coal around the place, and he meets up with this man who he's a detective, and he's saying that like half of his men are disappearing, and they're all like, and some of them are even like fallen incredibly ill. And so Lightfoot goes to investigate, and whilst he's there, he bumps into Henry Gordon Jago, who explains that he was in a kind of hospital where there's a lot of deformed people there, and he escaped, and so he travels with Jago, with Lightfoot to go on with this, to investigate on this coal. But whilst they're there at the train tracks, Jago seems to try and murder Lightfoot. Lightfoot pushes him in front of a train because Jago was trying to push him first, and then Jago then falls in front of the train and gets ran over and he dies, which is a bit of a shock, especially when this came out in 2010. Is it 2010? Yeah, 2010. They already announced a second season with them as well. And you couldn't have Jago and Lightfoot without Jago. and you kind of feel like something's happening, and maybe has something. Oops. Oopsie-daisy. 1 second. Don't know what that was all about, but let's get back to the story. That's pretty funny. So the doctor, not the doctor, Professor Lightfoot takes Henry's body to the morgue, and Lightfoot is talking with a constable. I believe it was Sergeant Quick, who is in the talons of Wing Chiang, and they take his body, and Lightfoot is like explaining that he wants to know why his friend tried to kill him. Maybe he had a stroke. Maybe there was a parasite in his brain. He has to find out. But then something happens. As soon as Quick leaves the room, Lightfoot is like, "Okay, you can get up now, Professor Tulp." And then Jago starts talking and is like, "How did you know?" So yeah, it turns out that Professor Tulp has, Dr. Tulp, sorry, he's been creating wooden bodies, which is something to do with the mahogany murders. Apparently, this is something he's already done, and that it's taken the notice of Lightfoot before, and they've met before. So yeah, and it turns out Jago is still in the hospital, trying to get out and try to work out what's going on. And whilst he's there, he meets somebody with worm-like fingers, almost like a Lovecraftian creature with worm fingers. A man that's turning into a creature beyond imagination. So that's, I like the H.P. Lovecraft style horror in this story, which will get a lot more focus at the end of the story. And Tulp basically explains a bit of his backstory. He's not from the future, but he can see the future. He's basically mastered the art of astral projection, and it turns out it was Tulp that was the spirit looking into the future in The Spirit Trap, and that it turns out that he was obviously the part of the Far Off Travelers Club, and they were used to pay for his machines, that he can make stuff from the future into the past, because he can see stuff but he can't bring stuff with him, so he has to make it in modern times. And so Lightfoot goes on to investigate, and he uses and whilst he's dead, Jago finds the machine, the Similarity machine. So he transports his brain into the Jago puppet, and after confirming that it is him, he explains that there is a building nearby that he can see, a building he recognises, which puts Lightfoot on his scent, and so they go off travelling, and yeah, and then we get a scene where they capture them, only for Tulp to have a bunch of men on his side, though some of them are deformed and stuff, and Lightfoot asks what's going on with these people. And Tulp explains that he's been, from the future, he's learned about this thing called uranium. Uranium, and that this thing gives off what they call radiation poisoning, and it will make people deformed and diseased and ill. I really like the way they explain it to you. Like, if this was any other type of science, to us it just sounds like sciencey gobbledygook, but this is real life science, and they explain it because back in those days there wasn't no thing as uranium. This is stuff that they're talking about creating now, so that's really cool. And Henry Gordon Jago escapes and gets with Lightfoot, and he notices that Telp always wears gloves, and to try and convince Telp's men that he doesn't trust him that much, Jago is like, have you ever noticed why he wears gloves? It's because he thinks that you are scum, and if you don't think they're scum, why don't you take off your gloves? And it gives them a handshake, to which Telp obviously refuses, and then after a struggle, Telp's gloves fall off and reveal that he has worm-like fingers, which scares all the men away. And Telp explains that whilst he was in his astral projection form looking into the future, something from the myths of space found him and has been slowly taken over his body, which adds to the fact of the Lovecraftian horror. And he's basically like, I can't control it anymore, I need to get away from it, and then they shoot them and he's dead. Ending the story. And everybody has a nice drink at the Red Cavern. Ellie gets an appearance. And just before the ending, it ends on a cliffhanger that leads up to season 2, as there's a mentions of bodies with no blood in them at all, and that Lightfoot doesn't want Jago to be involved in this one because it might be too horrifying for him. So he teams up with one of the sergeants, Sanders, which is the title of the next story, Lightfoot and Sanders. Now, sadly, at the moment, I don't have season 2. So this cliffhanger is going to have to go unresolved for a bit. Will I pick up season 2? I hope I get my hands on it, but I'm not holding my breath for it at the moment because these box sets are really expensive, and I've got a few other Jago and Lightfoot stories in the marathon, which is past that point. So I don't know if I'm going to get it in time. I doubt it. No, I won't get it in time. So overall, the Similarity engine is a pretty good story. My issues with it is that mainly it relies on the storyline. Like, if you didn't listen to the Mahogany Murders and you weren't too interested in Telp's kind of mystery story, you might be really disappointed with this one. And I wasn't too keen on Telp, and I haven't listened to the Mahogany Murders, so it could have been better if I maybe heard that one. But this series is all about talking about these stories as a standalone, kind of held up on their own merits, and I don't really think this story does. Apart from the fact that Henry Gordon Jago and Professor Lightfoot are some of the most beloved characters in any spin-off media. Christopher Benjamin and Trevor Baxter are they're just gold. They're just absolutely gold. But I think the story's a bit weak. I love the Lovecraftian horror, the elements. But the story does kind of, doesn't feel like a whole, it doesn't feel like, it's a good story, it just doesn't feel like a whole story, if that makes sense. So there you go, that's a Similarity engine. So join us when we go back to where the Doctor, Leela and K9 go searching around in modern day England, and they get, and they find out that humanity is being used. So join me next time for The Image of the Fandel. See you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.